those companies. The abundance of providing free education to every business owner and every local or national business group globally. The abundance of being there for you and every business that needs us right now.
Well, a very good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Satyam Garg, and on behalf of the Action Coach India and Middle East team, I welcome you all to a very, very informative session where we talk about what are the things that you can do in your business to take it to the next level. And we have a very expert guest today who is going to be talking about it. But before I introduce him, before I hand it over to him, just want to take a couple of minutes to introduce you to what Action Coach as an organization is. Action Coach is recognized as the world's #1 business coaching organization. We are based out of the United States of America, currently operating in about 96 plus countries, wherein we are impacting about 30,000 businesses on a week-on-week basis. And what we proudly say about ourselves is that we are not an education or a training company. We talk about bringing tangible results to the business owner. So over the next 45 minutes that you spend with our coach today, you will get to know exactly what we mean when we talk about bringing results to businesses. And to talk about the very special topic today, we have our coach, Sanjiv Mathur, joining us today. Now, Coach Sanjiv Mathur comes with over 3 decades of rich corporate experience in senior leadership roles, having led marketing teams at giants like Microsoft, Oracle. He's someone who's been there and has helped scale up many organizations. For the last couple of years now, Coach Sanjiv runs a very, very successful executive coaching and a business coaching firm based out of Gurgaon. And I'm sure, the time that you spent on the webinar today with him, you will get a lot of practical insights that you can go back, implement in your business, and scale it up. And that's how we all want to start a new year with, bringing in a lot of success, bringing in a lot of best practices. So on that note, I would now like to hand it over to Coach Sanjiv to take it forward from here.
Hey, good afternoon. And if you're watching on YouTube, as Satyam tells me, this is being streamed as well, then good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. It's good to see a number of people there. I see some familiar names there. Anupam, hi. Good to see you. Pranab, I reached out to you guys on mail. Mona, good to see you. Mona, many years since we connected. So I'm going to spend the next 1 hour talking about a few things that you could do in your business to really take it to a new level. Let me just bring up the slides and just type in a yes in the chat box to tell me if you can see if you can see the slide up here. Just quickly go on and type a yes. You know how to get to the chat box? Audience. Satyam, can you see the slide on the screen? Okay, so I see some people in the question box saying chat is disabled. That's fine. Anupam, you raised your hand. Is there something you want to put in the QA box? Okay, fantastic. Yeah, okay, great. So let me just start with this because I think for some reason chat is disabled. I'm going to talk about 6 steps to a better business. Most of you are doing some kind of business or the other. You may be working with an organization. You may be running a business of some kind. And so there is a fair amount of experience in the group. Even if you aren't, and you're looking to step into something and to see how you could build a good, solid business, you would have some knowledge about these areas. In my work in the last, shall we say, now the best part of 10 years, ever since I moved out of the corporate world and started working with businesses, small and large, I found that while that is true, the fact that a lot of us know a lot of things that need to be done to run a business, it's not always simple to structure it. When you start answering 6 key questions, what am I trying to do? Why am I doing it? Who needs it? Where am I going to do it? When am I going to do it? And most importantly, how am I going to do this? Things sort of start getting a little less clear in our heads. And so it's always a good idea to keep on going back and re-educating yourself on what needs to be done. And one of the ways that that I've seen to be quite effective is, it's one thing to tell yourself that you're going to do something, but then there's a lot of, shall we call it the whirlwind, the day job. There's a lot of things that come with the day job that prevent us from taking action on some of the really important things that could move the business forward. And that's where the whole practice of coaching becomes a lot more effective. So let me just see why I'm not able to move these slides now. Yeah, okay. So that's me, and just a little bit about me here. I've been an action coach for some time, but prior to that, I started out working with business leaders in corporates. I've worked with a fair number of people, as you can see. Lots of clients at an individual level, at an organizational level, and so on. Some of the pains that I work with business owners are things that I've personally experienced, having been a business owner myself for the last 10 years. It's not always the easiest thing to do, especially when you're stepping out of a different kind of environment that I was in. Not all of you would have been in that environment, but that kind of change is always a fairly significant move away from what you've been doing. I have, however, in this period gathered the best of 3 worlds as I see it. The first where I cut my teeth was the corporate world, which is very structured and lots of processes and lots of systems that come into place that have essentially enabled those businesses to scale into very large businesses, because they've leveraged what they've created over and over again and made their businesses large. The second part is being a business owner. So the basic pains of who's going to do what. Am I the person who's going to be the primary employee in my business? Am I the person who's going to do everything? From the lowest level job to the top level job? How do I hire good people? How do I train people? Those kinds of things. And the third is that the business that I'm in is a very interesting business, because it sort of enables you to work with people from different walks of life. I work with corporate leaders. I work with business owners in different industries. People have different kinds of challenges, and so I've had a good sense of a multitude of those things. So I invite you to leverage this time, and let's get the best out of it that we can. My purpose today as your coach is really very simple. First of all, I'm very grateful that you found this time, about an hour or so, to come and hear what I have to say. It's not the top priority in your life. I understand that completely. So I really appreciate that. And I'm going to do my best to make it worth your while by talking about 3 things, three big areas that any businessman is looking at, any business person is looking at. The first is, of course, about sales and profits. We're all most concerned about that. The second is, how do I take, out of this busy day, how do I take the time out for A, my business, and B, for myself? When I got into my own work, a lot of my colleagues in corporates and a lot of people that I spoke to said that, you're getting out of a 5-day week into a 365/7 kind of an environment. You're never going to be able to find the time to do the things that that you really want to do. And I thought that wasn't really true until I got into it. As business people, we work all day. There's no day, there's no night, there's no vacation, there's no travel, there's nothing. It's all about the business. But is that why we got into the business in the first place? I think that's a very fundamental question. I didn't get into business for that. I got into business because I thought, well, I'll be able to do more meaningful stuff. There'll be more money, there'll be more time, there'll be a lot of things. And I assure you in the initial years, that was not the case. I also assure you that even today, when I meet a lot of people who've been in business for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, maybe even 20, just can't find the time to do the things that they started out in that business for. And it's become a job. And they just go there because they have to. So how do you free up your time? And one of the ways, not the only one, but one of the ways to free up your time is how do you create an amazing team? I had, although it was in the corporate world, I had a fantastic experience of building out a team that there was really, it was scratch. We were doing nothing. There were a few people on board. There was a charter that had to be put together. I used to stay very busy in those days, working 12, 13, 14 hours a day. But as we built it out, as we built out processes, systems, and things underneath to support that, it became a very, very fulfilling and enriching experience. And I can tell you that in maybe about 48 odd months, I didn't know what to do with my time. It was that much time because my team was absolutely amazing. One of those team members, by the way, is part of this group. Una is right there in that group. That's why I said it's been a long time since we did that. But as your coach, today I'm going to talk about these areas. By the way, having some difficulty in moving these slides. Why they're getting stuck. Okay, there you go. So Satyam did speak a little bit about ActionCOACH. We are the largest business coaching firm around the world. About 2,000 coaching offices. There's a lot of countries in which we operate. The company is owned and was started by a very interesting man called Brad Sugars. He's an Australian. He started the company in Brisbane. And the one thing that strikes me about him every time I hear him speak is he says, "I'm an Australian. I run this business because I want to have a good lifestyle," and that's great. So over a period of time, Satyam said they've moved to the United States. He's moved to Las Vegas, and they operate their corporate headquarters from Vegas. That's where Brad is, and I would encourage you certainly to look him up on Google, and you'll find a lot of very interesting talks and a lot of very interesting articles that Brad writes. And I'll just leave you to discover Brad. He's a great guy to listen to. The ActionCOACH vision is to create world abundance through business re-education. Re-education being the operative word here, the key operative word here. We all got educated at some point in time in what we do. We all also agree that the world keeps changing, but the gap that opens up, between abundance and the changing world and what we know keeps getting larger and larger if we don't keep filling it up with re-educating ourselves. And so it's a great it's a great vision to create this. We're working with a large number of companies such as yours, every day of the week, and it's really quite fulfilling work. Before I go here, I just want to take a quick break here and see if there's any observations, questions. If you have them, get into the question boxes, type them in, and maybe I'll try to take a few moments to answer those. And if you have none, just say none. Silence is not an answer. Okay, thank you, Mr. Singh. No questions there. Thanks, Mona. All right, so excellent. So let me just move on from here. I talked a little bit about myself and the business. I think it's important for me here to touch a little bit upon on the whole idea about learning. So when you think about learning, there's a whole lot of stuff that goes into our brains, right? And that's the whole idea of learning something new. We've all heard about the left brain and the right brain. Any guesses? Again, I'll pick that in the question box since that's the only thing that's open for interaction. What are some of the things that strike you when we talk about the left brain? What is the left brain good at? Any answers there? Question is, what does the left part of the brain do? Okay, so I've got some answers here. Right brain is for creativity, left brain is to do the day-to-day job. Sumanyu Garg says creative task and innovation for the left brain. Mr. Madan Mohan Singh says logical, and yeah, you're absolutely right. It's about in that zone. So if you look at what the left brain does, it's really things like this. When you're forming words or sentences, or when you're doing your math, it's like, I'm writing out and I'm creating an invoice for somebody. I don't want to make any mistakes. I want to make sure the SAC numbers in there, the GST numbers in there, the address is correct, the contact numbers are correct, the details in the invoice are correct. Numbers add up. That kind of stuff is what the left brain does. And when we learn, there's a lot of left brain stuff that's going in because you're trying to logically connect one piece with another piece. The right, on the other hand, because I already got some answers on that, is the more creative part. It's a bit like, this is where you design your copy in your advertisements, or this is where you look, you visualize your emailers or direct marketing stuff, or if you do YouTube marketing, then what are you going to do with the video? You do Facebook marketing, then what's that post going to look like, or what's that ad going to look like? So some of the fun stuff, the creative and the emotional stuff sits here. When we go through training, both our left brain and our right brain are active. The right brain is looking at the emotional stuff. So the positive emotions can be, oh, you know what, I'm here to learn something new, and it's going to be great fun. A negative emotion could be, what the heck are these guys talking about? I already know this, right? I mean, what's new? This isn't going to work. We've tried all this before, and so on and so forth. So there is, those are some of the negative kind of emotions there. Those are some of the emotional things that play out. There's also logical stuff, which is, if I need to move forward, I need to learn some new stuff. This is new stuff, I like it. So there are those two things, but they often work against each other. And they end up creating a great amount of confusion in your mind. That's natural. I think the whole idea is we've got to let the confusion and that conflict work together, and then come up with the solutions that we want. It's a bit like this. I want you to look at the following text on the slide, and it's text, so it's written in the English language. What I'd like you to try is to on your own read those and call out verbally, speak it out. Not just in your mind, speak it out. Speak out the color, not the word, because the color is the creative part, the word is the logical part. And I'll give you about 10 seconds to do this. Just try this out. Read. So the first word says red, right? It's not red, it's actually written in yellow. So I want you to call out yellow, not red. And just go through this list now, top to bottom. All right, the chat box is open now. I want you to tell me what you felt and how what actually happened. Was there some conflict? Did you find it hard to sort of, just tell me if it was hard to hard to relate the two. Pranab says you fumbled. Excellent. Well done, Pranab. You're with us right now. Anyone else want to put in something there? Yeah. Oh, Mr. Gupta, you're on the call. That's good. Initial episode high. It was quite easy as my right brain has been active for the last 2 years. Oh, wow. Well, I didn't know that. You become an artist. Yeah, so it's kind of, it can. Okay, so Anupam Sharma says it started a bit slow, but it became fast once you got used to it. Well, you know what? That's exactly what's going to happen. That's exactly what's going to happen when when you try to work with learning. Mr. Ratneshwar has his hand raised. Do you have a question, sir? Hi. Okay. Was that you saying hi? That's great. All right. In case you do have a question, just put it in the question box, or I'll answer it at the next time we take a break. All right. So let's just move on from here. I think it's important for us to sort of look at the fact that there is a point that all of us have, and we call that the point of power in our language. And why it's important is that when you're learning, you have to do some things that that are going to enable it. Now, below this point of power are things like blame, excuses, denial. We just say this can't be done, can't be achieved. We tried this, never works. Etc., etc., etc. Pretty common when it comes to learning something new, especially when you're a fairly experienced person. But above this point of power is where things really change. If you want to drive real change, then we have to take ownership and we have to take accountability and responsibility for our learning. If you live below this, below this point of power, it just sucks up all the energy that you make yourself powerless to do anything, because you give the power of that denial, or power of that blame, or power of that excuse to something else, which is your environment or some people in the environment. We take accountability for it. You retain the power to be able to make the changes that you want. But by far, the number one thing in the whole learning space is, or when you're trying to learn something new or create new maps in your mind, is the failure to participate. I mean, the bottom line is this: you give 10%, you get 10%, and then one is disappointed with the whole outcome. You give 100%, you get 100%. Will you fail sometimes? Yes, you will fail sometimes, but that's not a reason to give up. So that's really the failure to participate is the only failure. And if you're looking for the one biggest block that so I'm now going to be 58 years old next month. The one thing I've learned, at least in the last 20, is the tendency to say this: I know. The problem with saying, the thing about why you say I know is because you've been around for a while, you've learned a whole lot of things, and there's not a lot of new things to pick up. And so when you hear something that sounds like something you know, right, or sounds like something you've heard, the tendency is I know. But I know isn't what I do, and I know isn't knowing knowing how to get into something real deep. I consult a lot of companies on executing their strategy. And people say, I've been in this role for 10 years, I've been in this role for 5 years. I know what needs to be done to achieve the result that I want. And then if you ask the question, in how many months out of the last 12 did you achieve the result that you set out to achieve? People usually come up with answers like, 7 or 8 or 9 or something like that. I say, if you know, then why don't you achieve it all the 12 times? And then where they go? They go into blame, and they go into denial, and they go into those kind of areas. What I know does is, when you tell yourself, I know something, it basically shuts your ears to what's being said. Because you already know. So your brain says, why do I need to listen? Right? And a better way to do this is not to take that position, but to take a position that says, that's interesting. Why don't we discuss that a little bit more? Right? So I'll just take another quick stop here, because we started with a little bit about me, a little bit about Action Coach, a little bit about what we do. Then we moved into a few things that we need to know and should be aware of about learning, because that's fundamental to picking up something new. Any questions or any points that you want to raise here? Into the chat and just tell me if there's anything you want to know and or you want to comment on. I'll be happy to address that. Is there something here in this thing about learning that resonates more with you than now than it did earlier? Okay. All right, Mr. Sharma, I think I'll take your advice and continue. Now to the point of why we are here in the first place. I think that's really important. How does Action Coach define a successful business? I think fundamentally the root of the thinking is, how do I as a businessman start behaving more as a business person, start behaving more as a business person than as somebody who's working in the business? If you're spending way too much time working in the business, in its operations, then that's you. And if you're working most of your time on planning your business, on seeing how you can replicate things that you already do, growing your business, then that's more in the zone of being a business person. We look at success in a business as creating a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you necessarily being engaged in it all the time. I'm not saying you don't engage in it at all. And I'm not saying it's not one of these things right now. But as we start looking at what's a commercial enterprise, what's a profitable enterprise, what's an enterprise in the first place, what does it mean when we say that it works? I think this will start becoming a lot clearer. It's about 6 things. The first thing is about getting focused on or mastering 4 areas in your business and being on top of those 4 all the time. I'll talk more about what those are as we go on. Because you know what, in a business, there's a million things you need to deal with. And most of us get swayed away by whatever is most urgent, often at the expense of things that are really important. And so what we'll talk about in mastery is what are those things that you need to spend the bulk of your time on. There's a whole lot of other things that need to be done. I understand that. They are also in many cases not optional. I understand that too. But if I have to spend the best quality of my time on something, what are those things? To foundationally eliminate a lot of the day-to-day chaos that happens in my business, because that brings stability to the business. When a business becomes stable, it releases a little bit of time for you to put in the effort and the focus on how do you get to a predictable cash flow? How do you sort of, what are the ways in which you could get to a point where you say, I have a reasonable comfort that, the cash flow pains that I get, the hockey sticks that happen at the end of every month and the end of every quarter and so on and so forth, could become less painful. I'm not saying they're going to go away. It's just that how do they become less painful and how do we get to a more predictable way of addressing our cash flow challenges? We call that niche because it's not just about the cash flow. It's also about how do you get to the, how do you do the marketing to get to that point? Because that gets cash into the business. Once the business has stability and cash, then we start looking at efficiencies. In a sense, we start looking at, okay, so if we know what needs to be done, then can we create a sort of repetitive model where this will take care of itself rather than us having to, put our shoulders behind it every time something like this occurs. One of the most frustrating things in the work environment is when you have to say, oh, we just did this last week. Why do we have to do it all over again? Why do I have to be involved in it all over again? And why do I have to start from scratch and sort of lift the weight again? The truth is you don't have to. The challenge is that while we know we don't have to and there are ways to address this, and many of us say we need systems in the business, we don't know what those systems are. And when we know what those systems are, we often don't know how to put them in place. And that's what the leverage piece is about. once you've got that in place, and the processes start kicking in and start addressing a lot of the repetitive work that we might have been doing, it's time to start looking at putting together an organization that will make sure that they are there to run the processes and to take care of the exceptions as and when they occur. So you invest a little bit of time in building the team. You invest a little bit of time in getting them trained up on what needs to be done, how the processes run, and so on and so forth. And you've got that piece going. By which time, you're on top of your main numbers. You've got a good steady cash flow. You've got processes that take care of almost everything that needs to be done in the business. Processes won't take care of 100% of the things. But if you can put 20% of processes in, that will take care of 80% of the issues that come up. You can processize those things. The balance 20% are humanized, for which you have a team that can take care of these things. Now you have a replicable model. And so you get somebody who's going to run it in your place, and then you take the whole model and hopefully take it and transplant it somewhere else. So if you have a shop, you might say, I have a system that runs. I can now take this system and create another shop. If you have a factory, you have a system running here, I can create another factory. I have a branch office in one place, the system runs, I can open a branch office somewhere else. And that's really when it starts getting to growth and to results. And that's really when you get to a point where where the results really start significantly outweighing the effort that you're putting into the business, and it releases a whole lot of time and stress of running an operation on a day-to-day basis for you to then start focusing on, how do I grow this? How do I replicate this? What do I do with the hopefully the surpluses that I'm able to generate from the passive income that I'm creating in the business? These, ladies and gentlemen, are the 6 steps. Again, I'll say there's probably 100 other things that you could do in your business, but if you apply Pareto's principle, these are the 20% of the things that if you address well, they'll help you achieve 80% of your result. Now, how do these things align with the Action Coach vision? You remember what we shared earlier. What's the purpose of what we do? It's to create a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. Now, which part of this makes it a commercial enterprise? It's the mastery piece. Right? So the four areas of mastery that I addressed are these. Again, I'll repeat that. There are probably others that you need to be on top of, but these are the 4 things that are really important. I mean, if I ask for a show of hands on the first one, destination mastery, it's usually not too many people will raise their hands when I ask a question saying, do you have a written 90-day business plan? Do you have a 1-year business plan? Do you have a 3-year vision? Do you have a 5-year vision? 9 times out of 10, the answers I get are no. And people say, I know what it is, but I know is very different from putting it down on paper. And so it's really about getting to the discipline of saying, where do I want to be 5 years from now? And therefore, where do I need to be 3 from now? Where do I need to be 1 from now? So what am I going to do in the next 90 days? Other than what going into office commands, because I get email and I get employees who come and tell me this has to be done and that has to be done and so on and so forth. That's the first thing. The second area is, and don't be surprised, I mean, I'm coaching a fairly large number of people right now. And I walk in and I say, okay, so in some of these businesses, let me give you a very classic situation. Some of these businesses, since they are small and medium-sized businesses, the first generation has created the business, and now the second generation is coming in and trying to make it, modernize it, structure it, and grow it. In some cases, the first generation does it too. Here's a simple question, or rather, here's a simple scenario. The patriarch normally keeps control of the finances of the business, and the younger generation runs the operations. When I ask the people who are running operations a simple question, like, so they will tell me, I want to increase the profitability of my business. And I say, since you control operations, what's your operational income? And, I won't even say 9 times out of 10, 99 times out of 100 people start looking here and there. Or some of them will say, oh, it's somewhere between 2 crores to 2.5 crores. My question is 2 or 2.5. And how do you know? Right? There are situations where you ask somebody, so, what's happening with all the inquiries that come into your business? To increase operational profit, one of the things you got to do is to increase sales. So what happens to all the inquiries? Oh, it's fine. We convert about 70-75% of our inquiries. And then when you, and that's in their heads. But when you ask them to put the data down in an Excel sheet, the number comes out to be some 20-22%. Right? So there are aspects to, what are you looking at and how accurate is that? How correct is that? Are you measuring it? Are you not measuring it? I don't want to beat the same horse again and again. It's the same thing about time. What do you spend your time on? I don't know. I mean, I have no time to do anything. Is a normal complaint. And one of the places that one of the clients I'm working with right now had a typical problem. All the employees say they have no time. They have too much work to do. And how do you counter that? So we worked out systems, of course, to figure out who's doing what and how much time they spend. And all of a sudden, we found that utilization of time by the employees in the organization and even the business owner in the organization in a meaningful way is probably just about 50-60%. And so, what do you do with that time? Similarly, with customers. We say, we believe in repeat business, and therefore, let's say one of the aspects of delivery mastery could be my shipments get delivered on time. And the question then is, whose time? And the answer I often get is, oh, we have a schedule and we just measure how many of these shipments are getting delivered as per our schedule. I'm saying that's not the answer. What I'm saying, talking about delivery mastery for the customer to keep coming back is, how many times do you deliver as per the customer's expectations? Oh, we don't measure that. Okay, but then what's the customer satisfaction like? Customer satisfaction is great. How do you know? Oh, we know it. We talk to them. Do you measure it? No. Do you have a customer satisfaction score? No. Do you have a net promoter score? No. And those are the kind of areas that one really needs to start with. 3 or 4 areas that one needs to look at and say, I need to be absolutely on top of this stuff. Failing which, I'm going to be drawn towards other less important issues. I'm not busy. I am busy, but I get drawn towards things that may not be that useful. Okay, so the first thing is about mastery. Now, so that makes it a commercial enterprise that's working squarely towards using its resources in terms of time, in terms of delivery, in terms of all of those things, towards a very specific set of purposes, which are the measurements you have in those things. Now, how do I make it profitable? And that's the second piece. That's the niche piece. There are 3 parts to this, and they are very important. I'm going to talk obviously at a high level given the time we have, but there are 3 very important things. So how do we define a niche? A lot of people look at that slide and say, you must be off your rocker. I mean, this is a market that's only, that's so price sensitive. There's no way we can get to this point where there's no price competition in the market. I'm saying, well, there are lots of companies that work with a no price competition kind of a scenario in the market. Right? It's not true that that there aren't companies that cannot command a price in the kind of market that we are in. I mean, for example, you look at some of the companies that have got this thing down to a science that have come into this market, right? I would say logistics company that does that does couriers, right? Would say that there are so many players in the market, I really can't compete on price. I have to pull my prices down every time a customer pushes me hard. But then my response to that is, have you not heard of Federal Express or FedEx or some of these other companies that command a price? Why are they able to do that? Right? You take FedEx as an example. I just pulled it out of my head, but you take FedEx as an example. The 2 things that FedEx does beautifully is this, right? They have a unique selling proposition. They'll always get your stuff from point A to point B they'll get it there safely. They'll get it there within a period of time. They'll make sure that the product gets there, and they'll give you guarantees around that. You look at some of these other companies like for instance a Pizza Hut. What's their unique selling proposition? Pizza Hut doesn't make the best pizzas in the world, but they're pretty expensive. Yet we keep ordering them. If you want a big pizza from Pizza Hut, they'll probably sell it to you for 600, 700, 800 rupees. I don't know what the current prices are. But why do you buy it from them? Because they guarantee 20-minute delivery. Their unique selling proposition is not that I make the best pizza in the world. Their USP is I deliver it on time. Take an Indigo Airlines, for example. And I'm talking about Indian companies, MNC companies, all kinds of things. Indigo says, I promise you three things. I promise you low cost, I promise you hassle-free, and I promise you on time. Now, I think they've thrown the low cost out of the window. I don't think they're low cost anymore. They cost as much as anybody else. But even today, in spite of Delhi being a huge hub for them, they're able to deliver 80+% on-time performance. Now you keep telling me that a flight from Delhi to Bombay takes 1 hour 40 minutes, but they show me 2.5 hours. I don't care. The fact is, he tells you, I'll get you from here to there at this time, and 85% of the time he gets you there. Right? And so, in spite of being a so-called low-cost airline, he's able to charge you that premium. So it's really critical. One of the things that's really critical in getting your niche, in getting the best out of the market is to have a good, solid, unique selling proposition and a guarantee. And at ActionCOACH, one of the big things that we work with people is on building this stuff. The second area, I said there are three. The second area is that in a number of our businesses, we don't test what we're doing. I mean, we just go ahead and say, "Ha, ye chalega. This will work." And so we go out and sort of take a program out there and then hope like hell that it's going to work. What we recommend and what we get what we get businesses to do is that when they're doing their marketing, not only do they test, but they also measure the efficacy of what's happening in their marketing. I don't think it works to sort of spray and pray. It's important to get out there and say, this is my audience, this is what their preference is, what I think this preference is, and this is how I'm going to address it. Ratneshwar, you have a question? Did you put that in? Okay, send me the details. I'm not sure what details you want. If you could just help me with that, I'll certainly do that. So the second area is to test and measure. Once again, you take examples of of companies that do this kind of stuff. They do not get into areas that aren't that aren't going to give you the result they want. But I find that the third one is by far the most interesting one. As businessmen, we all know how many customers we have, how much revenue we're making from them, how much profit we're making from them. I think that's important. Those are three big numbers. But if you look at it, all three are results. It's not something I can influence. Can I influence the number of customers I have? No, I can only influence what I can do to achieve those customers. Can I influence the revenue I have? No, I can't. I can only do some things to influence the revenue I have. Some action. How much profit do we make? No, that's an outcome. I can only look at some of the things I can do to achieve that profit. So let's put in some numbers. I'd like you to focus on this list of things, but only on the three red things. These are the outcomes. Now, if you look at the first outcome, it's customers. What are the things that determine the customers that you have? How do you arrive at the number of customers you have? You arrive at customers by simply doing two numbers. What's the number of leads I can generate? That's influenceable. How to get leads is influenceable. How many we convert is influenceable, because getting leads means I do some marketing, and marketing generates leads. I can't do customers, right? I can do something to generate leads, but I can't do customers. Similarly, I can do some stuff to convert those leads into an order. I can't do customers. So in a sense, number of leads multiplied by the percentage of leads that we convert into business is equal to the number of customers we have, right? So in a sense, customers is a lagging indicator. It's a result of something, and generating leads and converting those leads is a leading indicator, which means that if we do these two things, it will lead to our lagging indicator, which is adding customers, lead to a result. So that's the first thing. Second, if you look below that, how do we get from customers to revenue? Customers to revenue is two things. How many invoices did I cut? In other words, what's the number of transactions I did with the customer? And what's the average ticket size? So supposing I did 1 crore of business this year and I cut 1,000 invoices. What does that make my average invoice? My average invoice or average rupee sale would be, I don't know, whatever it is, $1,000, right? Now, if I look at that, that's how I get to revenue. Number of transactions I do into the average deal value, average ticket size, or call it whatever you want to. That's what gives me revenue. Similarly, how do I get to profit? Profit is about profit margins, and I need to do some things to get to profit margin. Now, these are interesting things. Let's put some numbers to this so we understand this a little better. Supposing I generated 4,000 leads, right? And I have a pretty decent conversion mechanism. So I convert about 25% of these leads. So what's 25% of 4,000? 1,000. I get 1,000 customers, straightforward math, right? Now I have 1,000 customers. Let's say every one of these customers did business with me twice in the year. So that means I did 2,000 transactions. 1,000 customers into 2 transactions each is 2,000 transactions. And each of those transactions, on an average, I'm not saying, there'll be some large ones, there'll be some small ones, there'll be some medium-sized ones. I'm saying average size of the deal is 100 rupees, right? So what's my revenue now? It's 1,000 customers into 2 transactions into 100 rupees per transaction, which is 200,000. Right? Now, I have revenue. I want to achieve margins. If I set a goal, I say to myself, my margins are going to be 25% of revenue. That makes my profit 50,000 rupees. Pretty straightforward math. There's no rocket science to it. But the good thing about it is, I can work to increase these. All of these things that are in blue, I can work to do something, change something, act in a certain way to increase these, because all of us obviously want to increase these. In some cases, you might say, no, I don't want to increase anything except this. I just want to increase the average sale size, average rupees per sale, and that will increase my business. That's fine. But I'm just saying that, the actionables are now numbers. It's not just 1,000 customers give me 2 lakhs in revenue and 50,000 in profit. It is 4,000 leads converted at 25% give me 1,000 customers. Now I know what to act on, right? And similarly, 2 transactions at an average sale value of 100 rupees gives me 2 lakh rupees. So I can increase the average number of transactions, or I can increase the average number of sale, or I can increase the conversion rate, or I can increase the number of leads, whatever it is that I'm comfortable with. But what if I were to take a reasonable number to increase? I'm not saying, increase 30%, 40%, and all that kind of stuff. I'm saying just increase by 10%. What happens? Let's have a look at this. But I'm saying, don't just look at one line. Look at every line and say, I want to increase this by 10%. So 4,000 into 10% is 4,400. Conversion rate, 25%. 10% of 25% is 2.75. You add 2.75 into 25. To 25, you get 27.5. Look at what it just did to your customers. Customers didn't increase 10%, they increased 21%. By simply increasing the number of leads by 10% and the conversion rate by 10%. Now let's keep building on this. Number of transactions was 2 per customer. Now let me say I will take 2.2 transactions, increase by 10%, but it's not on 1,000 customers now. it's on 1,210 customers, right? And I increase the average rupee sale by 10%. 10%. 100 रुपए की चीज 110 रुपए में, 10 रुपए की चीज 11 रुपए में. That's it, right? So I increase the average rupee sale by 10%. And what does it now do? From 200,000 rupees, it goes to 292, 820 rupees. And what's that? That's about 46% increase in revenue. By doing what? Increasing number of leads by 10%, conversion rate by 10%, and those other two things by 10% each. And then I just increase the margin by 10%. Look what it does. This, ladies and gentlemen, is some 40 something percent, 45, 46, 50, actually close to 50% increase in sales, and 61% increase in profitability. So when you start looking at niche, think about these three things, right? Think about what guarantees and USPs you have. Think about what you're testing and measuring, and don't just think about revenue and customers and profitability. Think about what gets you there. ActionCOACH has been working on this for a long time, 3 decades. For each of these numbers that you see in blue, there's about 50, 60, 70 different ways in which an ActionCOACH can help you increase these. Obviously not all 60, 70 will apply to every business, but instead of doing 1 or 2 things to increase things from point A to point B, might actually end up doing a whole lot more. The third piece, of course, is leverage, which means how do I get some systems in place now that I have mastery, which gives me stability in my business, niche that gives me cash in my business, what are the processes I could put in place? We look at, I think that here's a great example of how leverage has worked beautifully with something that was created once and used for different kinds of things. It's a great lesson. I don't know if you knew this, but the chassis that's the chassis that's used for building the Volkswagen Golf is the same that's used for building the Audi R8. So Volkswagen built the chassis, and then they built a car worth maybe $10,000 and another car that's worth $100,000 on the same chassis. And that's the power of marketing. So when you get into business, it's all about leveraging not just marketing, but it's about leveraging systems. Right? At ActionCOACH, we believe any business that's looking to grow, any business that's looking to systematize, needs to look at 9 different types of systems. And I'll put them out here for you. Because a lot of us tend to focus on this stuff, how-to systems. How do I get things done? But the problem is, if how do I doesn't connect upwards. If it doesn't connect upwards to what are the things that are going to tell me whether how I do things is useful or not. How do I know that the people in my system know what needs to be done? How do I make sure that the people in my system are in an organization chart so that I can map my organization on one side with the processes on the other, and the intersection of position and process tells me that this is where this part of my work or this part of my process gets done. How do I do that if I don't have smart goals for the business? How do I do that if there isn't a way in which we've defined the collective behavior of the organization, or we haven't defined the processes and systems we use as an organization, the language we use as an organization, and so on and so forth. So they don't work in isolation. You have to get the stack built up. Great thing is, once the systems are in place, then you can get a team in place that's going to run those systems for you, because the team is what makes it a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you. Now I have some chats. Oh, I'm so sorry. I perhaps did not see your question, Mr. Ratneshwar. If you're still there, then still there. All right. So it's a team that really makes this an enterprise that works without you. That's the fifth element. Now there's a whole lot of things in team building, and as a coach, at a high level, here are the things that we do. Unfortunately, most business owners end up, being the team. They end up working on the customers themselves. They end up working on the business themselves. Whereas in reality, the way this thing should really function is that the owner focuses on developing the team focuses on the customers and delivering great services and products to them. The customers support the business by giving it business, buying stuff from the business, and the business supports the owner by returning profitability and so on. Now, this is where a whole lot of the work needs to go in. What are the KPIs? What's the org structure? What are the goal sheets? How do you review people? How do you reward people, and so on and so forth? The process work goes in here. What's my operating procedure? What's my sales process? What's my marketing process, and so on? And then then we enable or we give the customer the ability to buy, and we create facilities so that the buying experience and the payment experiences are great, and that's how the owner gets supported here. So your action coach will work a great deal with you to get you to this point. And that's when we get synergy and results. That's when the growth and freedom piece starts. So if you look at some people who've sort of done this journey and have really benefited from it, look at Richard Branson and look at what he has to say. He says, look, the principles behind running a business are more or less the same. It doesn't matter what business you're in. And so if you've created one business successfully, there's no reason why you can't create another one, and another one, and another one. And that's the way that's going to happen is a quote from Jim Rohn, which says, so Jim Rohn is very well known in the US. He's or rather was a speaker on a number of business subjects and on personal development and so on, and actively followed by Brad Sugars. He just says, don't wish your life were easier. Just wish that you were better. Work harder on yourself. And so that's what coaching is in essence. It's not going to work on a spot problem. It works on the business owner, or rather, I'm talking about business coaching. It works on the business owner to enable that business owner to become future ready. It's not something that says, here's a problem, let's go fix it, right? Because it can be fixed. There are lots of people who can fix it for you, but they don't really help you become the better person that can address those issues going forward. If you look at what Brad says, it's got a lot to do with what you read and who you spend your time with. That's going to determine where you go, 5 years from now or 10 years from now. So there's some interesting things, and here's I think it comes from the world of sport. That's Tiger Woods. He's a golf champion that all of us have heard of, and he says, look, there's a whole lot of tough things that we all need to do in life, but it's very hard to do them all by yourself. So it's good to see if you have a person who can challenge you, a person who can who can help you define what success looks like, and then hold you accountable again and again to do that, because otherwise you'll just fall into your day-to-day stuff. Now, a couple of directions in which one can go. One is you could say, okay, good, but I'm going to try to improve my business on my own, and that's fine. I think that's an approach. The other approach is I'm interested in getting massive results in my business, and one way I could do it is to spend a whole lot of time trying to learn a lot of things that are out there in the market that can help me do that, and then do this with trial and error over time to get to success. Or I can find a way in which I can accelerate this, and one way to do that is, there are many ways, but one way to do that is to look at a business coach. And you got to really look at what options you have in that space. So there's a multitude of options, and we could talk about those. But what a coach can do for you is these areas. These are essentially the areas I spoke to you about in the last few minutes. So it's time to get into action. But before we look at what action we can do, and that's really me sharing some of the options that I can provide you. I'd just like to stop here and say any questions, any thoughts that that you might want to ask at this point in time. Would be great. Questions? Okay. All right, then I'll quickly leave you with a sense of what are some of the things that that I can do for you if you choose to move forward on this. There are three areas that I want to talk about today. The first is, you may want an engagement that's limited in the sense that you probably meet once in a quarter and build out a 90-day business plan. We could do that. There are variations of this 90-day business plan, and then within the quarter we have a couple of meetings just to brush up the plan and then move on. But the commitment is to meet 4 times a year, once in a quarter, to get the business planning done. Another option is for business owners that do want to create momentum. We're asking for about 18 hours of time over a period of over 4.5 months actually. These are sessions in which, the 6 things that I spoke about, we spend 1 session talking about each of those. That you get to vision, mission, and so on and so forth. And then most of the work gets done in between as homework, and then we can look at whether we want to take a deeper level of engagement or not. And the third, which is the most premium of these things, is meant for businesses that are of a reasonable size, that want to grow their business, and the business owners want to develop themselves through a higher level of awareness and building their business more effectively over a period of time. The typical engagements are about a year, and we meet 4 times a month and we discuss a variety of issues through those six areas that we spoke about. This also includes membership to the Growth Club, and and a kickoff that does an alignment between your personal priorities, your business priorities, and so on and so forth. So these are the three areas that we could work on, or you could look at in case you think that might be worthwhile working with a business coach, or if you feel that you just want to explore this a little more, we could start off with a diagnostic of your business. You can write into me at this email ID, or you can call me at this number, and we'll get you on your way with a good solid diagnostic. It's a questionnaire that goes deep into how your business is currently running, what are your priorities, when do you want to get there, what are who are the other people involved in helping you get there, a bunch of things that are in there. All right, I do think I have some things on chat. Yeah, it would be great to get. So Subodhji has a question on how to manage inventory. So that's a very, very specific area. Anupam, I'll just come to you in a moment. So when you look at inventory, I mean there are some pretty straightforward methodologies that are out there. I'm, as a coach, going to come in and make sure that you have a discussion around what methodologies exist, what are the levels of inventory that you'd like to maintain, how do you control that, what is the methodology that you use in there, and then make sure that that we're looking at some of the key metrics that sit in there. We all know what the metrics are. What's my ordering level, what's the maximum amount of inventory that I need, what's the frequency with which I want to order, what's the throughput, in the sense that what's the process that I take every time an order comes into the system before I fulfill it? Where does the indent get raised? What goes into the indent? What's currently in stock? What needs to be ordered? Did we, so there's a whole process, and we work through the process with you to see what works best for your business. I don't know if I don't think I can, unless I have a much deeper understanding of your business, start to recommend what needs to be done. But it's a useful conversation, and I'd be happy to have that. If you feel like, just write into me, and I'll be happy to have that. I hope that addresses what you wanted to, or what we can address at this point in time. Absolutely. Okay, Anupam, anything for startup? Fundamentally, Anupam, the areas that any business needs to address are very similar. Fundamentally, one difference that I found with startups is that startups need to be far more nimble. And so while we look at these 6 fundamentals on mastery, on cash flow, and on systems, and on teamwork, and on building teams, and so on and so forth, there's another very significant area that a coach comes in with, which is expertise on ensuring that there is focus over time on the goals that the leaders look at. So typically what happens is startups, when I say nimble, I'm being very kind, because often startups tend to jump from we do this today to 3 months later they're doing something completely different. There are issues with who's in the system. Far too often, at the beginning, you've taken on a friend or a family member or somebody who's close to you, and there are challenges with delivering some of those things, and hard decisions need to be taken. Those are areas that we slap on. So we just want to make sure that there's far more focus. We want to make sure that everybody in the system needs to know exactly what they are supposed to deliver. We need to make sure that there is a discipline over time. And we also need to make sure that if the startup needs to spin on a coin, spin on a dime and change because something just changed very dramatically in the ecosystem or in the thinking, that we have the ability and the systems to do that. So yes, the answer is yes, certainly. We also look at what is the capacity of a startup to deal with the way the coaching works, in the sense the finances of the coaching work. So there are options in that too. So we'll customize that. For startups. But the 6 fundamentals remain the same. Thanks. Thanks, Mona, for your comment. When you're starting out on your online business, let's get talking. And Pranab, excellent. So you too are planning to start something, and you want to start laying down the foundations. Good time to start a conversation. I'd be happy to start any conversations here. I'm looking at the questions. No questions in the question box. Anything else at all anyone want to talk about in the chat? Thanks, Anupam, for your kind comments. Okay, so there is another new message. Yes, about the business I do right now is built from scratch. In a sense, the work that I did, one of the jobs that I did at Microsoft was to build a telesales center from scratch. I wouldn't say absolute scratch. There were about 20 odd people in that team that did a few things that nobody was clear about what we were going to do, and we grew it in 2.5 years, 3 years to about 140 people. Our job was to generate impacted revenue for field sales teams across the business, And we started with about, I think we were doing $10-12 million of impacted revenue when we started out in the shape and form that it was in. So when we reincarnated it into what it did, in about 2.5 years, we were sort of impacting 140-150 million dollars of impacted revenue. So yeah, to that extent, I have. And by the way, I'm also on a very big debate with a guy who was a colleague in Wipro, who himself started up 2 companies or 3 companies, and he mentors a lot of people that do that kind of work. And the debate is really about when you've been in it, you often become part of the problem. For a mentor and a coach, it's often a requirement to have the clarity of distance between the problem itself and the solution. You don't want a situation where the conversation is, I've been a startup guy, you've been a startup guy, you have a startup problem. I resonate with the problem because I had the same problem, and then both of us sit down and say, oh, well, all startups have this problem, it can't be solved. So sometimes the clarity of distance is good, but it's good to have it's good to have both perspectives. So I hope I've been able to answer that question. All right, do I have anything else here in the questions? And I'm looking at the chat. No. Yeah. All right. So if somebody had raised a hand, I think I don't know where to see that. Okay, I don't see any raised hands either. All right. So I'm conscious of the fact that we are at now almost 5:15, and if there are no more questions and no more comments, then I think we can. We can break off for the day. Please do feel free to write into me. I'm very happy to engage with you, irrespective of whether, I mean, on a no commitments basis. And I just have a lot of fun doing this stuff, so I'd be happy to chat with you. And if that's it, then perhaps we can close the call now. So thanks very much, Akanksha, Anupam, Ashish, Bindu, Deepak ji. We talk again soon, I hope. Elston, Jyotsna, Rajesh. Oh, Rajesh, you're there. Excellent. Good to see you, man. Subodh, Surendra, all of you, thank you so much for staying till the very end. I have one last chat here. Akanksha, to your question about financial assistance given by me to startups, short answer is no, I'm not in that space, but I do know a fairly large number of people in my circle who do things like that. So, depending on what it is, I can always take a case to them, and then it's up to them it's up to them to really decide whether they want to take it forward. Okay. Thank you very much. Good night, and feel free to connect whenever you want to. Thanks. Satyam, are you going to end the call, or should I end the call here? Okay, I guess that's up to me now. So.